Hey there. Looks like we don't have many people in here, but I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the new Nerfs. Not sure exactly how many people are going to end up showing up, but I was trying to get my screen shared, but I guess I have to do a different option for that. So wanted to go ahead and just set something up real quick. So I was looking at the Nerfs to the Votann earlier today. One of my friends that I had played against earlier had basically said that he was very disappointed in the Nerfs, and I haven't looked at them yet. So I wanted to kind of give you guys my live take on this and see where it goes. But basically, the first thing is that everything basically got a points nerf, a heavy points nerf. So if we look at our HQ section, I don't know if you guys can see my screen. That's a problem, but maybe I'll redo this later on in a video where I can kind of show you guys all the nerfs and stuff. But I'm really kind of disappointed, I have to say. I'm not very happy the GW did this and basically nerfed them that hard. I basically was talking to my Leagues of Votann buddy who also plays Space Marines, and he was saying that essentially the army that he bought is now unusable because he had bought too much stuff and now he can't field nearly enough. So some of the things that stand out to me are the Synthonian Berserkers basically being raised by 8 points a model. I think that was kind of extreme considering they're not the greatest units in the first place. They could do a lot of cool stuff with some combinations, but again, getting there was the problem. And I think, they didn't really do anything to address that. The other thing that I was looking at was the Hecton Land Fortress, which increased by 70 points. So that's pretty insane. I think that, being now much more expensive than a Land Raider is going to really hamper them a lot, especially lists that were utilizing multiples of these, like my friend wanted to do. Turn Chanel. Actually, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but how can he buy too much if only 3 different models are buyable? So he proxied them, basically. He proxied those models, but he had planned on using those models anyway in his list. So he ended up using proxies. So I guess that's not really that much of a concern, but a lot of people pre-ordered the book. And the models that they did have access to were also nerfed. So I think Uthar the Destined is a model that people have access to, I believe, and that's been nerfed. That's been nerfed by 20 points. The Hearthkin Warriors have been nerfed by 1 point a model, which, I don't think that's that big of a nerf, but it is a little bit of a nerf there. The Hernkin Pioneers have been nerfed by 5 points a model. So those are, those aren't, well, I actually think that was kind of a fair nerf, to be honest, but they've been nerfed by 5 points. So a lot of the stuff has actually been nerfed, and a lot of the armies that people have been planning to buy are actually not being used now, which is unfortunate. So, that's kind of a shame. And that's true. You make a good point. I think, it's definitely better value, point value for the box that you buy. So that's a plus, I guess. The negative is that, a lot of people's armies are now, they're going to have to rethink a lot of stuff, basically. So I think one of the biggest nerfs, though, I have to say, is the nerf to Eye of the Ancestors. So this is basically one of their abilities, and it kind of goes with the judgment system, but basically it reads this. If an attack automatically wounds the target as a result of this ability, then for the purposes of any other rules that are triggered on a particular wound roll, that attack is never considered to have been made with an unmodified wound roll of a 6. So that essentially means that the Magna Rail cannons can no longer benefit from the judgment system. So if you're shooting at a unit that has 1 judgment token on it and you roll a 6 to hit, or you get an automatic 6 to hit from some other special rule, like Uthar the Destined's ability or something like that, you cannot count that as an automatic 6 to wound, which doesn't proc the Magna rail cannon's ability, which basically means that excess damage is not carried over. So that's kind of unfortunate for a lot of the people who really were liking the Magna rail cannons. And yeah, I do think a nerf was definitely on the horizon. And I do agree that you shouldn't buy an army for just the fluff, or excuse me, you shouldn't buy an army for just the rules, right? You should buy an army because you like the army. That's definitely why I chose Eldar to begin with, and I'm glad for it. And yeah, I mean, for the people out there who were going to be, trying to, cheese everything with Magna rail cannons and rail rifles and all that stuff and really lean into that, I think they're now paying the price. But, I mean, I think this part of it makes sense. I think this part of the nerf does make sense to me. I think that this should have been changed because it was really just too powerful against too many different factions. Against the Eldar matchup, I really don't think it was a problem. Again, because we have Strands of Fate, there was an easy way around this, which was, if you have a good armor save on your unit, you can benefit from, some kind of higher armor save. On AP -3 weapons, you could at least use Strands of Fate in some cases. But now, since this has been nerfed, I don't think we're going to have any kind of problem with this whatsoever. I think Eldar are probably going to be one of the harder matchups for Leagues of Votann. Yeah, and that's right. There was also some form of, yeah, you're right. There was the Iron Masters were able to do a bunch of mortal wounds with their weapons. I think they had a weapon and a stratagem or a combination of something to where they were able to do basically dozens, potentially a dozen mortal wounds. And I actually fell victim to this in my game versus the Leagues of Votann against the Forge Master, which is the upgraded version of the Iron Master. And my opponent was basically really eager to use it because he was not in the best place in the game at the time. So he ended up killing 2 D cannons with it, which even with Uthway was able to kill 2 D cannons. And Uthway gets, a 5+ against mortal wounds. So pretty insane. But yeah, just not that great for Leagues of Votann. I think what we're going to be seeing is a change from people playing leagues trying to get as many Magna Rails in the list as possible and using rules like the Forge Master to try to spam mortal wounds. I think we're going to see more things along the lines of, normal, regular Hearthkin warriors not being spammed maybe, but being used more. I think we're going to see the Hernkin Pioneers, I still think are a great unit for their cost. I think we're going to see players moving away from the Magna Rail weapons. Yeah, now they actually have to do something. They can't just rely on the Magna Rails to just destroy entire units, right? They actually have to strategically plan their lists a little bit better than just spamming the Magna Rails. The thing I think that a lot of Leagues of Votann players might end up doing is going with the L7 missile launcher, as well as the Hylas auto rifle. These are both really good for dealing a lot of anti-infantry damage. And with the judgment ability, with the judgment tokens and all that, I think even against tanks and vehicles, they're going to be able to really do some severe damage to those types of platforms. So, as far as Eldar goes, I think that our normal competitive lists aren't going to be much affected by any of these. If anything, it's going to be even a worse matchup for the Leagues of Votann. But I do think that Wraith-based lists, Wraithguard, Wraith Lords, and things like that are going to be suffering still because, Leagues of Votann are just going to basically just drown them in wounds, unfortunately. And I didn't really think that Wraith lists had too much of an issue with the Magna Rails because despite the fact that Magna Rails are very powerful weapons, they basically only have AP -4. So if you had Protect on a unit of Wraith Blades, you would still be able to make a Strands of Fate roll on a 6, and that would prevent all the damage done from that Magna Rail cannon. So in some cases, that wouldn't even come into play. But I think definitely players are going to rely more on the troops, the Hearthkin Warriors, and the Harnkin Pioneers to be able to actually score on objectives and deal damage and things like that. Let's see. Yeah, and I agree. I think the problem with Leagues of Votann was that they were too good against certain types of armies to where they basically stood no chance. So an example that I thought of was Death Guard, right? Death Guard are an army that really is really tough, relies on toughness and damage modifiers and things like that. And the Magna Rail Cannons did not care 1 ounce about the damage reduction because it would reduce one of the damage, but all the rest of the damage would go through. So you could kill a unit of 5 Plague Marines with one basically Magna Rail Cannon. And then the rest of your weapons on the Hecatan Land Fortress could shoot at some other unit and kill them too with a Judgment Token. So I could see why Death Guard players and a lot of slower armies, Necron players were having a lot of complaints about this because it was just too oppressive, right, for slow armies to deal with. Although, to be honest with you, Necrons can be built a lot of different ways. I think there's a lot of competitive tournament lists that Necrons can run that can be faster. So Necrons do have some tools against the leagues, but now with the nerfs, I don't think they're going to have much issues, honestly. The other thing that was interesting was that the Sagittar got nerfed as well, and it got nerfed by 20 points. So this was kind of funny to me because I didn't think the Sagittar was really that, for its price point, really that durable. And I think that now that, again, you can take 2 of them in a unit, but they're 130 points apiece. So they're almost the same cost as a Wave Serpent, and they don't have anywhere near the durability of a Wave Serpent. So I think that was a little bit, I don't know. I think GW overreacted on some of this stuff. And I think what they did was they gave a blanket nerf to the whole army when really only a couple things needed to be nerfed. I mean, for example, the call, right? Did the call really need to be nerfed? Did it need to have a points increase? Probably not, right? I mean, that's just your basic commander. It was good in combat and stuff like that. Could take some good upgrades and be, really powerful in close combat. But, I didn't think it was necessarily any better than some of the other things that other armies could field. Yes, it was a little bit better than, say a Space Marine captain or something like that, a Primaris captain, but it wasn't so much better that you had to kind of worry about that. So another unit that I thought was kind of funny that they nerfed was the broken. That's kind of funny that I said it like that because they weren't broken at all. But the Broker Thunderkin, I actually thought that unit was a little bit bad. Hey, Nick, how's it going? Yeah, I know. The live, I don't, this is my first time doing it, so I was really just doing this to try it out. I think I'm going to have a more official one later on. But yeah, essentially, I can't figure out how to share my screen. Right now, I'm looking at all the nerfs and so forth, but I guess you need a special program to do that, and I didn't know that, so I kind of just didn't want to drop the stream altogether. I wanted to at least talk to you guys to see if some people were on here, but yeah, I'm aware that there's low viewership. It's all good. I'll probably end up doing this a little bit later. Hey, Joshua, what's up? How's it going? We're just talking about the points nerfs to the Votann and how it changes the dynamics of the Craftworld Eldar matchup, which I think, honestly, I thought the matchup was really bad for the leagues before. And now I think it's almost, I would say, under normal circumstances, if you're running a typical Eldar army with a lot of fast units, things like jet bikes, things like, D cannons or, shroud runners or things like that, fast units, you're not really going to see the leagues of Votann be able to compete in the same way that other armies were having trouble with the leagues with. So I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think is the biggest nerf to the leagues of Votann? And I have my opinion about what the biggest nerf was personally. I think it was the Hecatan Land Fortress was the biggest nerf. Just because not only did it get nerfed with the points, but it also got nerfed with the Magna Heavy Rail Cannon that basically just can't do it. But hey, Bastion, how's it going? Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm going to be doing more live streams. As soon as I get this figured out, the tech part of this figured out, I'm going to be doing more of them. I think what would be cool is if I did a live stream for every update for an FAQ or something like that, or a new Nephilim rules update, and I kind of just gave you guys my first impressions of it, reading through it. because a lot of the videos that I come up with on my channel are pre-thought out. So I think them out beforehand. I kind of go through it a couple times, and I'm not giving you my first impression maybe, but I'm giving you an impression that has been thought over a little bit. So maybe first impressions would be a cool thing to do on this channel, for sure. Yeah, and the Hearthkins also, right? Are you talking about the Hearthguard or the Hearthkins? I think the Hearthguard, right? Getting increased from 35 points a model to 45 points was a big nerf. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right on there, Ugandan. I think that's true. I think that, Eldar are typically better against smaller elite armies. And I think now that the Votann can't field as many troops and as many tanks, they're not going to be as effective across the board. And Eldar, because we have so much speed, we're going to be able to surround them and really kind of give them a hard time. So it's unfortunate. To give you guys an example, that video that I gave you guys, that little kind of battle report that I gave you guys about the battle I did with my friend, which, by the way, he was using proxies. He didn't have all the models available, obviously. But he wouldn't have had as much stuff. He basically would have had to take out 300 points out of his list. So he would have had to take out a Hecatan land fortress from his list. So that's a big deal, right? That's a huge deal. Yeah, no worries. Hearthguard, Hearthkin, it all sounds the same. It's all, either Hearth or Warrior or Iron or Forge or whatever. Right? I mean, it kind of all sounds the same anyway. For dwarf units, that is, right? Everything is about hearts or guards or honor or judgment or whatever. So it's actually funny. I used to play dwarfs in fantasy when fantasy used to be a thing, and I used to really love dwarfs. So I wasn't always, I played Eldar in 40K and I played dwarfs in fantasy because I wanted something the complete opposite. And I have to say, dwarfs just didn't suit my playstyle that well. I wanted to move around the board a lot, and dwarfs just really didn't do that. So yeah, and Bastion, I think that the Hearthkin nerf was probably kind of one of those things they just added in because they felt like they needed to blanket nerf the whole army, which I disagree with. I don't think they needed to be nerfed. I actually don't think that by themselves, without the judgment system, I don't think they're the best models out there. I think they're pretty good. I think they're decent, but the fact that they have 1 wound each, they have a 4+ save, even with the void armor, they're just not very survivable against a lot of weapons that would be targeting them in the first place. So I actually think they are a good unit, but if you take into account the upgrades too, the Magna Rail rifle is 20 points, the missile launcher is 10 points. If you actually upgrade them, they're quite expensive for what they are. Oh wow, Smoker, your friends list went up 530 or 595 points. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't think the Berserker nerf was needed either. I think the Berserkers honestly were fine as they were. And maybe that's just from an Eldar perspective because, in my battle, they never really got into combat. So, I mean, I guess against something like, Khorne or some of the new demon armies, they might think a little bit differently. See you later, Bastion. Have a good one. Yeah. Yeah, their weapons are still really good. That's the thing. I mean, they really have powerful weapons, but they have to get there, right? It's just like, to give you guys an example, I don't know how many of you guys played Warhammer Fantasy back in the day, but basically it was like the dwarfs had really powerful weapons, they had really powerful items and stuff like that, and they had really good armor. But the problem with the dwarfs is they had no way to get to the opponent fast enough. So essentially, pretty much all competitive dwarf armies at the time that were running in tournaments would have to rely on artillery or long range firepower to be able to deal with a lot of the stuff. And they just didn't perform well on objectives. They just couldn't get to objectives in time. And I think that with the Leagues of Votann, that actually might be the case. And what I think you're going to see now is I think people are going to stay away from the Hecatan Land Fortress. And I think people are going to go more for the Sagittars and Hernkin Pioneers, as well as the Warriors, to fill up their armies and go more wide with their forces instead of trying to do the Hecatan Land Fortress gimmick, which was with the Judgment token and so forth. Yeah, I think whoever had that Berserker army was your friend was really liked the Berserkers. I think that's why he went all in on the Berserkers. But all right, see you later, Josh. Have a good time in class. Peace out. We're probably going to go until about 12:50. I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit and see where you guys were at with live streams and stuff. I think that's, that's what we'll probably start doing. I think we'll have longer live streams later on when I can get this working. I get this black screen fixed and I can have something to show you guys. But oh yeah, the Berserkers are awesome models. And honestly, my favorite models in the fantasy game were Slayers. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen, dwarf Slayers, but they look really cool. They're basically just naked, bearded guys with axes. And I thought that was awesome. So when I saw the Berserker models, I really thought they were really cool too. Yeah, they're still good. I just think that, honestly, I don't think the nerf was warranted. I think that's a huge nerf for the unit. And the thing about the Sithonian Berserkers is you really have to put them in transports, right? You have to either invest in the land fortress or you have to invest in a Sagittar to have multiple units in there. So, you can't really walk them on the board because they just die to anti-infantry fire. And I think, they don't have a great save either. Yeah, I think you're right, Smoke. I think the only problem I had with GW with this is that I think what happened was when they released it, they released the rules really OP because I think they wanted people to buy the box set and stuff like that. I don't think the playtesters are that naive, and I don't think they're really that stupid. They've made some mistakes, but I think they kind of knew what they were doing. The thing they didn't expect, though, was for the community to basically give them so much backlash that they were starting to be banned in tournaments. And, GW didn't want that from a marketing perspective. They didn't want to release a new army that was being banned from tournaments. So they decided to basically over nerf a lot of the units to compensate for it, basically. So, I mean, I've done some marketing in the past, so I kind of know, what they're going for here. And the funny thing is they basically apologized on their page and said, "We're so sorry. We never want to, make players feel like they're in an unwinnable game." And I was like, "Oh, really? You don't want that?" Because I could have sworn that you guys have wanted that for years, and that's why every new army that comes out is a lot better than the other armies. But I could be wrong. Or maybe I'm just being a bit jaded because I've been playing this game for over 20 years. I don't know, but yeah. Yeah, cool faction. I mean, I like them, Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? The Dark Reaper nerf. I never understood that at all. That was one thing that I never really understood. And I think, that was probably because Dark Reapers were so, how do you say, they were so instrumental to a lot of people's 8th edition lists and tournaments and so forth. So they decided to nerf them for some reason in the new codex. I don't know. But Eldar they do that with Eldar sometimes. They'll take something that's OP in the previous codex and they'll basically nerf it to the ground in the new one. And then, I mean, that's what it'll be. Sometimes they've done that before. They did that actually. It was funny. They did that in 5th edition when Eldar came out with their 5th edition codex. One of the units in there basically got nerfed to the ground. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was, gosh, what was it? Now I'm drawing a blank on the unit, but yeah, they basically nerfed it from the previous edition, which was the 3rd edition codex. Oh, it was Swooping Hawks. They nerfed Swooping Hawks because they got rid of their sustained assault ability. They changed it around. So the Swooping Hawks used to have an ability, believe it or not, with the Exarch that he could keep attacking forever, essentially, as long as you kept rolling hits. And the cool thing is the Exarch hit on 2+. So you basically had 3 attacks that we were rolling to hit, and you kept rolling until all of them missed. And that's how many attacks you would get. And sometimes, if you rolled good enough, you would have a Swooping Hawk Exarch get like 30 attacks with a power weapon. And back then, power weapons ignored armor. So obviously, that was really OP, and they nerfed that. But, I mean, sometimes they'll nerf a unit, and you won't really know why, like with Dark Reapers. So, yeah, I honestly, the Dark Reapers being, basically 30 points a model plus upgrades are really expensive. and they don't really do a whole lot. I like the unit. I really like Dark Reapers, but unfortunately, it's just one of those things where they're not effective. They're not cost effective. Now, that's not to say I don't take them sometimes, because I think they're really cool, and I do have one of the old units that I have, painted up and everything, so I think it's nice, but it's really not a unit that's effective. I'm actually thinking of doing a video coming up on Dark Reapers and basically talking about how we can improve Dark Reapers a little bit, and maybe it catches the eye of a game developer or something like that, and maybe they can make a change. I don't know. But oh, you have 15 Dark Reapers? Yeah, well, I had 10 for a long time. I had some of the old Dark Reaper models, and then one of them had these skulls. I can't remember what they're called, Death Skulls or something like that, but Web of Skulls. I don't know if you guys know what that was, but it was an old weapon that you could use to be able to put on Dark Reapers. So I couldn't use that unit, so I ended up actually painting it up and selling it. But now I only have 5. Yeah, the old Dark Reapers are cool. I never actually thought that they needed new models, believe it or not. I always thought the Dark Reapers were fine as is. I think they were cool. I think the units that really need new models are Warp Spiders. I think Warp Spiders need new models, personally. But hey, how's it going? Yeah, I feel you on that. Yeah, I didn't expect it either. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I liked that. That was a good inclusion. I think he needed it, to be honest with you. I think he really needed a new model, because the old Manga Raw was a little bit, but the same thing could be said of all the Phoenix Lords, right? I mean, Jane Czar got a new model, which is cool. But it's like one of those things where you want all of them to get new rules at once, right? But oh yeah, Children of the Open Skies and Swift Strikes. You know what though? I was actually it's still good with Dark Reapers, but you just can't advance with it. So I was wrong, because I thought that you could advance and shoot with heavy weapons, but in some cases, with the rules as they're written now, you would need to have an assault weapon in the unit to be able to actually do that with Swift Strikes. Otherwise, they're not eligible to shoot. But Children of the Open Skies does give them +1 to their movement, which makes them a little faster. And Swift Strikes means that they can shoot and move without penalty. So it's actually really good with them still. It's just not, it's not as good as I originally thought when I did that video on it. You own 3 Mangan Raws? That's funny, man. Yeah, I don't even own a single Mangan Raw anymore. I used to have the old one, but I recently got rid of it because honestly, I just never play them, And actually, another one of my Eldar friends said he would buy it off me because he had the new model, and he said that he wanted the old one too, and I sold it to him. So yeah, don't have it anymore, but I don't know. I might buy one again if I see one on eBay for really cheap. I really like painting the models too, so that's always fun for me. Every time I'm on eBay, I'll look for a really cheap model to paint up. Yeah, he used to be a lot better in the 8th edition codex, if I'm not mistaken. Mangun Ra. I think he was also one of the ones that kind of got thrown by the wayside. I think he was cool. I think Mangun Ra is really cool. I don't think he's my favorite Phoenix Lord, but I think he's close. Alrighty, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna wrap this up in a second. But yeah, he used to be able to shoot twice, which was really cool. That was a really cool ability. Yeah. Yeah, he's just not really that great anymore, unfortunately. I wish he was, It's one of those things where I wish they had kept that. But, I don't know why they exactly nerfed him, but it seems like the new models that came out, with the exception of Guardians, got nerfed. Yeah. You know what's funny about the objective secured aura on Phoenix Lords? I'll just say this, and then I probably am going to end the stream just because I want to get some of these technical issues fixed. But the thing about the objective secured aura is that it's not really great with their aspect warriors, but it's really good with them because they benefit from their own aura. So it's not good with Dark Reapers because why would you put Dark Reapers in a position where they could get killed on an objective, right? But it's good with themselves, right? So because they're characters, they can kind of be with other units and be safe because they have Lookout Sir, and because they're Phoenix Lords, right? They only take 3 wounds a round, or excuse me, they only take 3 wounds max a phase. So they're a little bit harder to kill. So having Mangu Raw sitting on, for example, a Webway Gate in the backfield, if you do have a Webway Gate in your list, I know that a lot of competitive lists don't have them because tournament terrain is a little bit restrictive, but yeah, it is a boring ability. You're right, and I think that's where they really went wrong. Is they thought in terms of, okay, how can we make this really competitive? And honestly, it's not really that competitive on most Phoenix Lords. It's competitive on Baroth, and it's competitive on maybe Kahandras, but that's about it. I don't think objective secured is really that great on any other Phoenix Lord, to be honest. But yeah, it is boring though. You're right. I wish we had something a little bit cooler, like a cool special rule or something like that that allowed aspect warriors to reroll hits. Or it'd be cool if you take this Phoenix Lord, you can take your aspect warriors in their own aspect as troops. That would be cool. Imagine having Dire Avengers as troops again, or having Howling Banshees as troops or something like that. You could really go and do a lot of cool things with that. That would be really awesome, I think. But anyway, something for next time, I guess. All right, everybody. That's going to be it for today. I'm going to kind of end the stream now, but thanks for showing up. I really appreciate it. I actually didn't expect anyone to show up at all. So I'm glad a couple people showed up, and I'll get these technical issues fixed, and hopefully we can talk about some stuff, talk about some Warhammer. Maybe we'll just have a couple of live streams just talking about the rules and units we like and stuff like that. Absolutely, Smoka. See you later. See you later, Ugandan. And Nick, if you're still in, I'll see you later as well. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.